All right, welcome everybody to How to Build Your Credit with Colorado Credit Union. My name is Whitney Thomas and I'm the Marketing and Business Development Specialist at Colorado Credit Union, and I'll be facilitating this credit webinar today. We have both members and non-members joining us, so welcome. Just a little bit about Colorado Credit Union. We are a member-owned, not-for-profit financial cooperative, and that means our earnings are passed on to our members in the form of competitive rates on our loans and savings products. We currently have 3 branches, one in the Littleton, Carroll area, downtown Denver, and 1 branch in Brighton. We do provide a full array of products and services to help you achieve your lifelong financial goals. It is a common myth that people think they can't join a credit union, and a Colorado credit union, almost anyone can join. If you live, work, attend school, or worship in any of those counties you see listed on this PowerPoint, you can become a member with Colorado Credit Union. Some webinar information before we get started. All attendees will be muted. If you need to ask a question or make a comment, feel free to use the Q&A or the chat function located at the bottom of your screen in your menu. Any questions that we don't answer during the webinar will be answered through email after the webinar. We will also provide a list of resources that will be sent to all attendees, so you don't need to worry about remembering websites or links, names, anything like that. We will provide that for you at the end. Our presenter today is Sarah Hurdle, and she's the Director of Marketing and Business Development, and she will be presenting our credit webinar.
Thanks, Whitney.
Yes. Our agenda today, we are going to talk about just a credit score overview, what it is, why do you need it, the different credit bureaus, how scores are calculated, and we'll touch on some of the credit myths and facts that will take us into how to build your credit, how to maintain good credit, and we'll talk a little bit about credit fraud and the coronavirus pandemic that is currently happening. Before we get started, we are going to do a little poll, and it's just, do you know your credit score? So we aren't asking a specific number or what your credit score is, just a simple, do you know your credit score, yes or no? And that can give us a little feel of the amount of people that know their score or not. All right, give it a little bit longer for everybody to answer. All right, let me share these. So it looks for, do you know your credit score? It looks like 80% says yes and 1% or 20% says no. So it's really good that some of you do know your credit score. And I will turn it over to Sarah to lead into our credit score presentation.
Great, thank you, Whitney. Well, it's great to see so many people already have a handle on their credit score. And for those that don't, hopefully we can provide a little insight today and help you get a little bit more knowledgeable about credit. So a credit score is a number that ranges from 300 to 850. And we'll give you a breakdown in just a minute about what is good and what a credit score might need to be worked on. But obviously, the higher the score, the better. And there are 3 main credit bureaus for calculating credit scores. As mentioned, so you can see from this graph, Whitney, talk a little bit about a good credit score versus an excellent one.
Yeah, so seeing this credit score number breakdown, you can see that the score ranges from 300 to 850. Anywhere from 300 to 629 is considered a bad credit score. Then that leads you into the fair category of 630 to 689. 690 to 17 is good, and anything 720 and above is in the category of excellent credit score.
Absolutely. And so why might you need credit, Whitney?
So to get credit is necessary if you want to borrow money for major purchases such as a car or a home. A high credit score can mean better interest rates and terms on loans and/or credit cards. So why else would you need credit? Lenders aren't the only ones wanting to see your credit report and credit scores. There are other factors that look at it, such as a landlord when you're applying for a place to rent, insurance companies, utility companies, prospective employers, and it can even be used to verify your identity.
Yes, and as mentioned, Whitney, the three major credit bureaus, and we're going to go into this a little bit further later on, and we will definitely provide some links for how to access these, but Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax are the main three credit reporting bureaus. Whitney, talk a little bit about FICO scores.
Yeah, so FICO score, it's a summary of your credit report. It measures how long you've had credit, how much credit do you have, how much of that credit is available, and if you've paid all of your bills on time. So it takes a mix of all of those factors and it calculates a score. And we have a little video, quick video that really describes how lenders use FICO scores.
Whoops, sorry about that. Operator error.
So, how do the 90% of top lenders in the US use FICO scores? They use them in a number of ways that matter to you. Received a pre-approved credit card offer recently? Well, there's a good chance your FICO scores were used to identify you as a qualified prospect. Applied for credit recently? A FICO score was likely used in the approval decision process. Have you recently received a credit line increase on your credit card? Well, most lenders periodically get refreshed FICO scores on their customers. Your credit line increase was likely a reward for your ongoing credit health. FICO scores help lenders understand if you are likely to pay as agreed and if they should extend you credit. And lenders often use FICO scores to set credit terms, such as the amount of credit they'll give you or at what interest rate. Now, as important as they are, your FICO scores aren't always the only information lenders use. Along with FICO scores, they may also consider your income, employment history, the value of your collateral, such as your home or car, or any existing relationships the lender has with you. Keep in mind, too, that for most credit evaluations, such as a credit card application, lenders will use a FICO score from just one of the three credit bureaus. However, the applicant typically doesn't know which of the three credit bureaus the lender will use. But for a mortgage or a home equity loan, it's a little different. Lenders will usually take into account a FICO score from each of the three credit bureaus on all applicants. Now, that's a really good reason to monitor your FICO scores. So, the bottom line is this. Higher FICO scores can make a substantial difference in what people, like you, pay for a loan. So, be sure to monitor yours so you can understand how lenders see you and understand your financial health.
Such good information. One of the things in how FICO scores are calculated, it is a mix, which is actually a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing in that if you have an issue with one portion of your credit, it doesn't 100% impact your score. But then, as you can see, sections such as payment history and the amount that you owe on loans or credit cards weigh very heavily into how that score is calculated. And then the other portions that make up your FICO score are the length of your credit history and then types of credit and new credit. And we'll go into those a little bit further in this presentation.
Sarah, it looks like we had a question come in, and it is, why do I have different credit scores?
Oh, so that's a very good question. And that basically is, if we go back to those three credit bureau agencies, each one of them has a little bit different way of calculating. And so that is how people end up with a different score. And as we get a little bit further along, we'll look at how, what type of loans might use all three of those credit bureau agencies, and then what type of loans might just use one or two. So here's a little, some credit score myths and facts. Number one, credit scores are used by all employers and we'll go through these quickly, so no need to do a poll or anything. That is a myth. You will see that some employers use credit scores to determine whether a candidate is a good fit or not, but not all. Number two, there's only one credit score used by lenders. I'm guessing everyone knows that one after we just went through it. No myth. There are three main credit bureaus, and there are some others, but as we mentioned, there are those three main credit bureaus. Number three, a credit score is just one of the many factors into getting a loan. And that is a fact. Again, there are lots of different variables that a lender would look at before approving a loan. Number four, student loans do not impact credit scores. Do you think that's a myth or a fact? That one is a myth. They do absolutely count as part of your debt. Number five, low scores hurt your interest rates. That is a fact, and we'll get into that a little bit further too. Shopping for loans can hurt your credit score. Myth or fact? You know, that one is actually both. Whitney, how can that one be both?
Yeah, so shopping for loans hurting your credit score. That is both a myth and a fact because it depends on whether the inquiry was a soft pull of your credit score or a hard pull. And the difference being a soft pull is just looking at a general overview of your credit score, where a hard pull inquiry is looking at every single factor that determines your credit score. And so when it is a hard pull, it does reflect as an inquiry. The higher amount of inquiries you have, the more it can impact your score. So depending on if it's hard pull or soft pull, it's both myth and fact.
It's great info. So people ask us, you know, how do I build or maintain good credit? And for people that are just starting out on their lifelong credit journey, it can be very hard to build up their credit. And, you know, your individual financial institution will probably have some opportunities for you. We have a couple of different things at Colorado Credit Union that we recommend to people. And we do recommend starting early, you know, as soon as 18, as soon as you're legally able to. We recommend looking at some of those different ways that you can start building your credit. One of them might be with a secured classic Visa credit card, and you can see some of the terms there. And then we also offer credit builder loans that can help establish a healthy credit report. And we will provide information at the end of this webinar if you are interested in any of these products. And again, if you have a different financial institution, you should definitely reach out to them and see what opportunities they have available to help you down that journey. Types of credit. So, you know, people talk about, okay, I've got credit cards or I've got a mortgage, and how are those different? So the different types of credit are revolving credit, which would include those credit cards, overdraft personal line of credit, home equity lines of credit, and then those installment credit, which are those monthly payments that are typically going to stay the same each month, such as an auto loan, a mortgage, or a personal loan. And if you remember back, you know, 10% of that FICO score calculation, having both revolving and installment credit can help your score. Now, how do you maintain good credit? So number one, avoid racking up debt on revolving credit lines, which, you know, people think of as charging up your credit cards. Definitely, if at all possible, don't make minimum only payments. And boy, we know that some people have been impacted by COVID and may have lost their job or may have a reduced salary. And we have an entire section at the end of this webinar where we can provide some help and some tips for those people that have found themselves in that situation. Don't use credit or loans for things you cannot afford. And then very importantly, always make 100% of your payments on time. And this includes your utilities, such as your electric bill or water bill. Those factor into your credit as well.
Sarah, looks like we have one more question that came in, and that is, should I close out my old credit cards?
Oh, that's a very good question. So in brief terms, we would say no, that negatively can impact the amount of available credit. We do talk a little bit later on about some of the factors that are applied to your credit score, and we will get into that. In fact, I think on this slide, we even talk about it. So how do you maintain good credit? Consolidate loans for lower interest rates. Let creditors know in advance if you won't be able to make your payment on time. And again, we will talk about some of those COVID-related issues and job loss in just a few minutes. Make sure to review your statement thoroughly each month. That way, if there's any sort of fraud or inaccurate charges, you can catch those very quickly. Make sure to monitor your credit score. Keep your credit card balances low. Don't close old credit cards here, Whitney. This is the answer to that question because it reduces your available credit. And then limit applications for new credit cards. You definitely don't want to go out and open a bunch of new credit cards at the same time because, as Whitney said, those hard pulls on your credit negatively impact your overall score.
Sarah, let's take a poll. When you were talking about monitoring your credit score, I'm going to put a poll saying, how often do you check your credit report? So let's launch this, and it's a multiple choice, and we can get an idea of how many of us are actually monitoring our credit. If we do it monthly, annually, some people do it right before they apply for a loan, and some people haven't checked their credit report, which is okay because we're providing those resources for you today.
Absolutely.
Let me just give it a little bit longer to let everybody have a chance to respond.
Well, it looks like there's a mix of answers, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's great. All right, let me share this poll with you guys to see the results. So it looks like 14% check their credit report monthly. We have 43% annually, 43% before they apply for a loan, and 14% has never checked your report. And we will get into the details and specifics of how to check your credit report.
Yeah, those are interesting results. So in terms of what negatively impacts your credit report, here are some things that you should definitely avoid. As we talked about before, late payments, unfortunately, even if you are just a few days late, those late payments can impact your credit report. Delinquency, 30 days is generally considered delinquent, and it takes 2 months of missed payments before it is generally reported to credit reporting agencies. Garnishments, a court order directing that money or property be seized to pay a debt owed. IRS liens, which is where the government files a legal claim against your property when you neglect or fail to pay a tax debt, and bankruptcy filings.
We did have one more question come in. If not paying just the minimum, and let's say you owe $1,000 on your credit card, how much should I pay per month to help my credit score?
Well, I would definitely say, again, obviously the most important thing is to pay above the minimum, but I would look at what your monthly budget is. And after you have paid all of your expenses and obviously have put money aside for savings or emergency expenses, then whatever you have left that you can afford to pay, definitely pay down that credit card as quickly as possible. Again, that type of debt weighs heavier on your credit report. So paying it down as quickly as you can while still being able to pay all of your other obligations is probably the best advice.
Thank you.
So time on credit reports, and Whitney talked a little bit about those soft pulls or inquiries versus hard pulls or inquiries. So those soft pulls do not impact your credit report, but a hard pull, and so that means anytime that you actually apply for a loan or a credit card, those stay on your credit report for 2 years. A delinquent payment stays on for 7 years, a defaulted account for 7 years, foreclosure for 7 years, and then a bankruptcy discharge can stay on for 7 to 10 years. So again, that's why that's so important to, those delinquent payments, always make sure that you are making your payments and making them on time, because as you can see, even just a delinquent payment may stay on your credit report for 7 years. Next, credit fraud. Boy, as we always hear a lot about fraud, but with COVID, we have had a lot more fraudulent activity, at least at Colorado Credit Union for our members that we are helping them through. So, you know, one of the main things that you can do to really protect yourself against fraud is to monitor your credit and be sure that there isn't fraudulent activity on your credit report. And going back to that poll, you know, under normal circumstances, we always recommend people to check your credit annually. Now, and we'll get to this in a few minutes, during COVID, they actually have made some changes to how frequently you can check your credit report. So we will get to that in a minute, but definitely at the bare minimum, you should be pulling your credit report from all three of the different bureaus on an annual basis. And then during COVID, all three are now offering free weekly reports through April of 2021. So that's a great way, again, to make sure that during this time where there's so many people who are out of work and so much increased fraud activity, that you can check it much more regularly now, and that will not impact your credit score. Other free ways to access your report monthly: if you use TurboTax offers a feature where you can check your credit report or your credit score. And then also several different credit card companies offer a score check as part of their services to their customers. If you do see any fraudulent activity, it's very important to go in and freeze your credit. And you would do that by actually reaching out to all three of the different credit bureaus. And what that does is it limits so that no additional lines of credit can be opened, so no new credit cards or loans. And then if you actually need to, if you have frozen your credit and then you need to apply for a loan or a credit card, you will have to contact that bureau so that they can unfreeze it so that you can legitimately apply for that loan. And then if you notice any fraudulent activity, you should definitely report that right away. So in terms of your free credit reports, this is actually from the government, and it gives some great information about checking your credit reports.
Shopping for a car? Applying for a job? Looking for a home? Or just getting your financial house in order? Then it's time to check your credit report. Good news, it's free. The law entitles you to one free copy of your credit report from each of the 3 nationwide credit reporting companies every 12 months. Why is it important to check your credit report? It has important information about your financial accounts, how you pay your bills, and if you file for bankruptcy. You want to make sure everything is accurate, especially before you buy a house or a car or apply for a job. If you notice something wrong, contact the credit reporting company and business providing the information to correct the error. And checking your report can help you guard against identity theft. Visit ftc.gov/ID theft if you spot accounts that aren't yours. How do you order your free credit report? Order online from annualcreditreport.com, the only authorized website for free credit reports, or call 1-877-322-8228. You will need to provide your name, address, social security number, and date of birth to verify your identity. Keep in mind, you're entitled to one free copy of your credit report every 12 months from each of the 3 nationwide credit reporting companies. So the next time someone asks, "How's your credit?" you'll have the answer. To order your free credit report, visit annualcreditreport.com or call 1-877-322-8228.
And Whitney, you had some good information, I think, to share about not just searching or Googling annual credit reports.
Yeah, and this link will be provided in an email at the end. If you were to Google check my credit report, there's a lot of fraudulent websites out there that try and duplicate that site, and they want to get you to enter your personal information, and then it can be used for fraud purposes. So it's always important to go directly to that link instead of a Google search to ensure that you're not coming across a fake website. So we will send that link out.
Yeah, that's very good advice. So one of the things that we have had lots of questions from members, and you see in the news, you know, the COVID-19 pandemic has really impacted a lot of people in different ways. And so many people have either lost their job or had wages decreased because of the pandemic. And so, you know, what do you do if you've lost your job and you can't pay your bills and due to COVID-19? So one of the first things that we recommend is to call your financial institution and see what options they have. I know at Colorado Credit Union, we did several things early on in March to try to help out our members. We activated our Skip a Pay program that usually is only available in December, but we've just looked at some different ways that we could help members, and your financial institution may have some options for you as well. Definitely be honest about your situation and just let them know that you've lost your job because of COVID. And then don't delay the process. Don't wait until you are 2 or 3 months behind on your bills and then give them a call. Make sure to call them up front as soon as you know that you aren't going to be able to make a payment, and see what they can do to help you out. And then some financial institution options. You know, you can defer payments. You can possibly get a forbearance. Whitney, do you want to explain what a forbearance is?
Yeah, so forbearance is when the lender will allow you to temporarily pay your loan at a lower rate, or maybe even temporarily suspend it or pause it for a month. Some financial institutions do 3 months. It's important to remember that this isn't erasing those payments completely. You will still have to make up those payments at the end, but it's just giving you a pause and a little break from making those payments.
Absolutely. And then temporary reduced payment plan or fee relief are some of the other things that your financial institution might be able to do to help you out. Now, you should be prepared that if you are calling and asking, you know, for a financial hardship relief, that you may need to provide a letter of hardship, proof of income, and bank statements. And then 2 things, and I know we've touched on this before, but 2 things to remember that really can lower your credit score are those late payments and using most or all of your available credit. So if at all possible, you know, try not to rack up a lot of debt on your credit cards during this time. And again, always make sure to make your payments on time. But the good news is that credit scores are fluid, and if you end up in a situation where you miss a payment or something happens and your credit score goes down, the good news is that if you continue to work on making your payments on time and do all of those things that we've mentioned, your credit score will bounce back after time. So definitely something you want to be careful about and cautious of, but just know that you do have the ability to get it to rebound.
There, we just got another good question in. Is checking my credit score via one of my credit card companies considered a soft pull, and how often should we check our score?
So, and again, during COVID, they actually have, you know, increased the recommendation or are allowing people to check it weekly. You would definitely want to check the specifics of your credit card company and make sure that it is a soft pull. I would guess that it is a soft pull on your credit score, but I would highly recommend that you read the fine print, and if you aren't sure, call your credit card company and just make sure before you do anything that might negatively impact your credit score. Some additional just COVID-19 and pandemic advice: when financially able, obviously continue to consistently pay bills on time, reduce any outstanding debts owed, don't apply for new credit. Can a drop in score impact applying for a job? And we know that this is something that, you know, as people who have lost jobs and are trying now back on the job market, this is a question that we've had people ask us. So a couple of things to remember here: a prospective employer must get your permission to view your report, and they actually see a limited version of your credit report. It does not include your credit score. And then federal law requires that that company gives you a report, a copy of your report, along with a written description of your rights, if that report plays a part or negatively impacts your ability to get that job. So you do have some protection there. And then those resources that Whitney has mentioned, and again, we will email those out to everyone at the conclusion of this, but those credit bureau contacts, and then that official annual credit report link, and then Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion.
Thank you, Sarah. So it looks like we have answered all the questions that have come in, and if there are any additional, we will be sure to include those in the email with all of the resources to everybody. We hope you enjoyed our presentation, and you can always, this is our contact information as well, and you can always go to our website or call our main phone number if you have any specific questions about credit products that will help you build or maintain your good credit. Thank you.
And Whitney, sorry, I think we did have one last question that was, will we be sending a copy of the presentation to attendees? We will be sending a copy of the resource guide to attendees. Our contact information is there. If you would like a copy of the full presentation, feel free to email either one of us and we will get that to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Sarah. All right. I hope you enjoyed this, and we will reach out to you through email.
Thank you.